Hey everyone, welcome back to CartelFiles. My name is Adrian, and in today's episode what we're going to do is we're going to continue on from where we left off in last video. If you haven't seen that video, please go back, watch that before you watch this one, and if you can give me a like and a subscribe, that would really help continue this series and make this all possible. So in the previous video we've designed this coaster. You can see it has a Lego version of Robin from Batman and Robin, and what we're going to do is we're going to now make his companion. So we're going to make Batman version of this, and I'm going to take a lot of the work that we've already done in this design and just adjust it to look like Batman. So if you want this file so you can follow along, you can go to CartelFiles.com. It's available there. You can download it and you can follow along as we go. Alright, so what I've done is I've already Googled a few photos of Batman, the Lego version, and you can see I found these two files here. The one on the left is basically the same perspective as the Robin version, so I think that's going to help us like flesh out a lot of the stuff. And the one on the right, I really like his mouth and his the logo on his chest and his utility belt compared to the other option on the left here. I think that's just way too detailed for what we're trying to achieve. So I'm going to use these two files, or these two images to design our new file. Alright, so let's get started. First thing I want to do is just move these two images out of the way. We'll go in, we'll grab the Robin design file that we made last time and paste it right there to get started. Alright. What I probably want to do is simplify it first and then add in all the details later. So I'll just right hand click and click this option here, ungroup all, and that just basically, if we turn on our objects panel on the right hand side, you can see it ungroups all of the different curves that we designed in the previous video and allows us to edit it all. Okay. So we don't need this outside line for right now. We can add that in very easily later. And so as you can see, the Batman, he has a different type of cape, obviously a different head, and different details on the body. So anything that's different, I'm going to delete from our design. So the cape, we can delete that. His head we can also delete, and then all the details on the inside, so all of this stuff we can just get rid of. I can just highlight it all, press delete, or I could go back up here to where the crop tool is, click and hold and select the virtual segment delete tool. And I tend to always use this tool because it's super quick at deleting lots of different lines. Okay. Clean up that little line and get rid of this, and now we're basically at our starting point. Okay, perfect. So the one thing that I noticed straight away is that the images are not the same size. They're, different perspective, and yeah, it's not to scale, not to the same scale. So what I tend to do in scenarios like this is we try and start at one point. I'm aligning the bottom of his foot here to the bottom of our design. And as you can see, the image is smaller than our original design. It may be a little bit hard to see, so what I'm going to do is go over to this transparency tool, and that allows me to change the transparency of the image just so our design can stand out a bit more. It's easier to work with. So simply all we do is we click on this uniform transparency option. Okay, and you can see now it's added a transparency filter to our image. Good. All right, so now what we want to do is we just want to stretch out this image so that for the most part our design is the same size as our image, or the other way around, our image is the same size as our design. Okay, so you can see that kind of is the right scale. And I'm just using his feet as a as a guide. That sort of looks like it all lines up. His hands are in a slightly different pose, but that's okay, because we're not going to redo any of that red design that we've got here already. So first things first, let's select the design that we have. In our objects panel here, you can see they're all separate curves. Let's combine those, or let's group those, sorry. So we just press the group option here. Okay, and now you can see that there's a group of 61 objects. Instead of having, 61 individual curves in our objects panel, it's just one object. Now it's just easier to keep track of everything. The next thing we want to do, click on our image, right-hand click, and go down to lock. And that just prevents me from accidentally moving that image while we work. All right, perfect. So we can see that the mask, or the head piece will come up off the neck, just like this. I like that design. You can kind of see it a bit better here, how there's a bit of a gap between his body and his head. I think I like that design. It's also uniform across the robin and now this one, where there's a bit of a neck there between the headpiece and the body. So first things first, I think what we do is we start off with a rectangle. I just started at any arbitrary point. I'll come down and I'll select that node. Okay, what I've done is I've snapped the rectangle to that node of the neck, because now what I can do is I can just pull this out and I know that the neck and the head are touching. All right, so I've pulled that out to sort of the side of his mask. I'll pull this one out a tiny bit more. Okay, and then what I want to do is just come in here and radius these corners. Okay, you can see in this image it's quite a decent radius, and I think I like that. Whereas this image, it's not so obvious, and I don't think it's as much of a radius. So let's choose that, click that rectangle, and we can come up here and you can see this is the corner radius option. So this is only available once you click on that rectangle. And I think we'll start off with maybe a 3 mil radius. How's that look? Yeah, I think that's about right. We can pull this side of the rectangle in. So I think that's just slightly too wide. Okay, and then we can start working on the top of his head as well. So for this, I think this is a simple case of using the 3-point curve option. So that's over here under the line tool, 3-point curve. And you can see the curve kind of starts sort of down here. So I'll choose that option, click almost all the way to the top of the spike there, and pull out that line so it's that nice curve there. You can see on the top of that spike it's rounded over. So I'm going to pull across, create that nice top curve there, and then just basically follow that all the way along. So I'll come down here. You can see it sort of comes out before it comes down. I'm going to put a bit of a radius here. And now his head has a bit of a dome on the top. Okay. And then to make this uniform, we're going to use the same trick that we did last time. So I will come over here, choose the 2-point line option this time. So under the lines, instead of 3-point curve, we'll go to the 2-point line. All right, we'll find the midpoint of that rectangle, pull up a line, and now we select this curve and that line. Control C, Control V to make a copy. And then up here, I will choose the mirror horizontal option. All right, and that flips that that copy that I made. And if I choose that top node and move it to snap to the other top node of the previous line we made, now you can see we've made a perfectly symmetrical curve. Now the image is not a perfect front-on image of the face of the mask, so you can see that the lines don't perfectly match, but that's why I wanted to flip it so it looks symmetrical instead of just going off the image. It just may look a little bit weird when you finally decide to cut it out on the laser. All right, so now what we're going to do is just clean this up. I use the virtual segment delete tool again, get rid of all the lines that we don't need. All right, we can also see that there's a bit of an overlap or a double line here. So I can just basically turn one of the curves off. I'm going over here and I'm just choosing the left curve, for example, and turning that off. Maybe it's a bit easier if I turn the background off too. And I'm going to delete this line. Oops, sorry. Best way is to double click it, grab that last node and delete. Okay, and then I'll turn my other line back on, and now it's all connected and there's no double line in the middle there. Perfect, so his head's looking kind of good at the moment. I'm going to grab all of that and group it, and we can keep working. So you can see there, it looks like there's some sort of a line or a curve down here. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, so we might just skip that detail, but maybe if it doesn't look quite right, we'll come back in and fix it. The next thing we want to do is his mouth. So let's start with a straight line like this, and a line at a sort of 45-degree angle, which we can create that sort of curve. And then same deal down here, create that curve that we need, come across, and we can continue at the top. You can see that this line comes straight, and then where his nose is, he's got a bit of a triangle section that comes out there. All right, I think that's not quite as sharp as I'd like. I'm going to edit this node and bring it in a bit more, and go back to our line tool and create a bit of a sharper curve. I think that looks okay. Sometimes what I do is I create another line, because this is the horizontal, I guess if I extended the left-hand side of the curve, this part here, horizontally, I want this line segment here to also match up so it looks symmetrical. So I grab that node and just go up until it hits that line, and then I can remove that section. We don't need that. All right, and then we can continue on with the mouth. Again, I'm going to do my trick where I can grab this, copy, paste, and then flip horizontally. That creates a copy. I can grab a node, so for example the middle of his nose, drop it there, and that creates a symmetrical side on the right hand side. Go back in and we can delete all the double lines that we don't need, because again, perspective reasons, it doesn't line up perfectly. But once we've done that, okay, we can turn on our bitmap, and you can see that's a perfect duplication of that design. Now, as I said, I don't like his mouth, so we're going to skip that detail and we'll work on his eyes now. So I think this is definitely a time for the 3-point curve. We can start sort of here, follow along with his eyes. When there's a sweeping curve like this, I tend to choose a node at the start of the curve and then stop sort of halfway between that curve. Because if I don't do that, I'll show you on the other eye. If I try to do a point from here to here, you can see it just sort of creates a very sharp edge at the start and end point. And if we were to do something like this, you can see there's a lot of cleanup work to do here. And we may not be able to get a nice smooth finish for the start and end, or the corners of his eyes, let's say. But I think this came out very nice and smoothly. If I double click on the line and select that node, what I want to do is go up to here and click on smooth node option. Okay, and that kind of almost fit perfectly for what I want. Okay, I can play with these handles. It's a bit hard to see, but there's these blue handles here that extend from the node, and you can play with that in order to, I guess, squash out that line. Do the same on the right hand side in this corner, smooth that node out, and we definitely want this a little bit more tighter, so I'll pull those handles closer to the node. And I mean, it's all sort of personal preference, but I think that looks roughly what we're after. All right, again, let's copy and paste that and flip. So that looks pretty good. And let's turn that bitmap off to see where we're at. And I think that's looking okay. So I'm seeing one detail here. You can see this looks kind of boring. I think we need to add in the details to get a bit of a better, more appealing image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create some lines that come down the creases where his nose is and in the middle of his nose. And I think we have to end up putting in these details that I said we might need to leave out. So I'm going to extend a line sort of from the corner of his head here, copy it to the other side as well, and then create sort of this boomerang shape curve as well. I think this is maybe a good time to use one continuous line because it's a sweeping curve. And then let's see what these look like with this sort of shape here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the top of the node, snap it back to where I designed it on the left hand side, click that node, hold down shift so I can only move it in a perfectly in a perfect line straight across, and then we wait until that node hits this edge. So there we go, boom, it's intersected right there. All right, let's turn the bitmap off, see if that's made much of a difference. I think that looks a little bit better now. We also need to just outline his face and sort of connect up to all these other lines that we've made, just so it makes a bit of sense why these lines are here. 3-point curve again, we'll go up and across, and then back down. Then we can put a little bit of a curve here for his cheek. And we just follow this all along. The details, the really fine details, you're not going to notice on something that's the size of a coaster. Okay, so if this is, you know, 1/4 of a millimeter out, it's fine. I think what I want to do, because I really like the way that this line has come out, I'm going to try and copy that. And then double click, choose the nodes that I don't want, which would be these ones. So I'm left with just the line that I want. And we can just edit this a little bit so it's more in line with what we're expecting. 3-point curve, come down. Yeah, that looks much nicer. There you go. And we can definitely spend more time, get this all set out nicely, but this is fine for right now. How does this Lego version look? There's no eyeballs, it's just white. So let's leave that as is. Turn the bitmap back off. And we're looking all right, I think. Yeah, good. So I think it's time now where we swap out the images. Let's unlock the Batman that we've been using and sub in this other Batman. Okay. Again, we have to change the size of the image to sort of suit the design that we're working with. And I think that looks okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is change that transparency again. And we're going to just try and align his shirt a little bit better. There we go. Maybe a tiny bit more. And we can lock that image again. Now we can start fleshing out his mouth. So I'll probably do this curve. You can see that this is not a perfect curve. So if I did that, it would be way too it would have way too symmetrical of a curve. So what I want to do is sort of choose a point halfway, create a flat bottom, and then continue on with the curve. And I think that looks great. Can go across, drop down for the top of his mouth, come here and create that curve there. We do the same for his teeth. All right. Whoops. Come down to here. And we just smooth that curve out. That looks okay. We'll do the bottom part of his teeth as well. So these ones are a little bit longer. Flat bottom of the curve, come up, curve that again, and we give that a bit of a rounded corner there. I don't like how sharp this part of the curve is here, so I'm going to smooth that node and just play with it until it sort of follows what we see in the image. And I think we're there. Let's turn that image off and see what that looks like. I think that looks all right. And what I want to do is now create a bit of a contour. So let's do an offset contour with rounded corners. So I'm choosing this rounded corner option. Here we can also choose an outside contour only. Okay. And if we hit apply, it'll create a new outline. And I think 0.5 mil is just a little bit too big. Let's go with maybe 0.1. Hit OK. And that looks more in line with what I was thinking. Cool. Alright, so that's his face done. And you can see having those two lines so close to each other, when you zoom out, it looks like a darker line, which is sort of what I'm going for. Good. Alright. Next thing is, let's work on his logo and utility belt. So the logo is basically pretty much an ellipse, an oval. Okay, and then we can try and create his bat logo with the 3-point tool, 3-point curve tool. And I'm being very quick, just so you know. I would recommend taking a bit more time to make this nice, but I'm for the sake of the video, I'm trying to do this a bit quick. So let's do something like this. And typically what I do is at the end of the video, I spend, you know, another 5 minutes and I just clean up anything that could look a little bit better. All right, again, I'm going to do that trick where I copy this. Nope, I want this curve. There we go. Control C, Control V, and flip horizontally. And there we go. There's your logo. Delete all the nodes that we don't need. All right, and we can come back in. Like, I don't like this point here. That could be smoothed, definitely. This point here could be smoothed. All right, and I think that looks fine. Again, I'll come in and I'll clean all this up. All right, time for the utility belt. So it looks like they're basically just rectangles. You can see all of these. Just look like that. These ones on the left and right hand side are tapered at the top. So we can use a 2-point line, come in here, create that taper, and delete the line that we don't need. Taper, and I'll just turn that background off so you can see a bit better what I'm doing. I'm getting rid of all those lines that we don't need. Okay, and I think we will group all of these curves now, make it a little easier. And we want this sort of detail here of the joining portion of the container that he's wearing on his utility belt. Okay, something like that. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. We can clean it up later, but most of these details you won't see if they're not absolutely perfect. Almost there. Last line, and there we go. So you can see that utility belt looks pretty good now. And I feel like we need a line across to show that they're sort of all connected, like it's a belt. So let's use our rectangle tool, choose sort of in the middle, which is basically here. Extend those lines past where we need them. Grab that virtual segment delete tool. Delete all the lines that pass through the utility belt and outside of his body. And yeah, that now looks like everything's joined together. Cool, that looks very good. We could stop there. You could go in and you could do this sort of design of his abs, you know, sort of showing his muscles, but I think that's a bit too much detail and it'll get lost. I like this design. So the last thing we want to do is let's work on his cape. So I'll choose a point sort of here, and I think I like the left hand side of his cape more than his right. You can see that it's not symmetrical, and I think designs like this look really good if they're symmetrical. So choose a point sort of halfway down that curve, follow this down. Okay, get close to this corner, make a nice swooping line halfway along this curve, halfway along this curve, almost down to the corner, make this nice swooping corner, come up into his leg. All right, and we're going to leave the portion between his leg without a cape. So now we can grab this cape again, make a duplicate of it, flip it, add it over here, but what we'll do is we'll just make sure that that intersects his leg. So something like that. We can adjust the way that these two nodes intersect with each other. And I think we're there. There we go. That looks pretty cool. I'm having second thoughts on the eyes and the mouth though. Maybe what we'll do is we'll just put a single circle in the middle of his eye. I'm not sure. Let me have a play around with it, and I'll finish off this design, make it a little bit nicer. We also need to delete this line from the middle of his neck, and I'll get back to you once I've played around with it. So I've spent a little bit of time mucking around with the design. I think what was wigging me out a little bit is the height of his face looked a bit wrong. So I've just pulled those curves down. I've also filled in his mouth, which I think makes a bit more sense. And I've made his eyes slanted a little bit more to make it look more aggressive. And I think that's the design done now. So I think we'll leave it off there. If you want to download this design, you can download it from CartelFiles.com. Have a play with it. Maybe you can come up with a few different design tweaks to make it look a little bit better. But I think this is fantastic, and I think it'll go really well with our robin design in our previous video. So if you like this video, please click the like button and give us a subscribe. It really helps the algorithm, and it keeps me being able to keep making these videos for you. Thank you.